Hi everyone, my name is Riley Owens. I'm a senior here in the Krannert School of Management studying finance and economics. Originally I'm from Fort Collins, Colorado, and I'm a very proud Boilermaker. So Marge, a lot of students don't necessarily know what they want to do coming out of college. So how did you find out what your passion was, and how is that passion portrayed through your work?
It's a good question. I had no idea. I knew what I didn't want. That doesn't always help, although it can be a bit of a guide. And it took a while for me to figure out what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. My passion was not so much a particular discipline or a function, or frankly, it wasn't banking. I was recruited into banking after my MSIA because that seemed interesting and good people, and I was kind of ready to just go with the flow, so to speak, at that point. But my passion really developed over time I'll describe it as for managing well, for doing things well, for making things better, for being committed to the people around you. And I became very customer focused, very people focused, and that always guided me in what I did. And I'd say my passion really worked around making things better. I couldn't resist a situation that I thought could be better, and I could help make it so.
Very nice. So that's been something that you learned in your first job and has transitioned throughout your career?
I learned it pretty quickly.
Okay.
My first job as a supervisor was about, I'll say, a year or so after my degree. I was quite young at the time. I had a group of people, all of whom were older than I and some twice as old as I. And I can remember thinking, how am I going to do this? I mean, how do I deal with this? But I learned that everybody wants to do better. And if I could help them understand how they could do a better job and we could collectively really make a difference and do well, that I had something to offer. You know, they would have some interest in listening to me, not because I was a kid in their minds, but because I could help make things better. And I learned that that was the way to communicate. And from there, it just, regardless of the numbers of people, you still have to deal with everybody individually, and you have to give them a reason to do better.
Absolutely. Very nice. Throughout your career, what has been a hard time or a mistake that you've made that you've learned a lot from?
Yeah, any number. I mean, you have to make some mistakes. I mean, there were certainly some decisions I made that, looking back, I go, well, that wasn't the best decision. In some cases, it was delaying a decision, or it might have been not addressing an issue, particularly one I recall with respect to technology, saying, well, maybe we can work our way through it. Well, the answer was no, we couldn't. I tried too hard to fix something that really couldn't be fixed. And sometimes you just have to step up to it. It's a problem, deal with it, move on. But one of the biggest mistakes I made, which fortunately didn't ruin anything, but it gave me a bad time, was I took the wrong job. I took a job and kind of put some of my own reasons that were how I usually made decisions about taking an assignment to the side. I took it even though I had that kind of bell going off saying, this really isn't going to work out so well, it's not for you. But I did it anyway. One, because I wanted to prove something. That's not a reason to do it. I wanted to test myself to see if I could, even though it was kind of in the wrong area, the wrong people, could I do well anyway? And at the end of the day, I didn't enjoy it. And I found that if I wasn't happy and really enjoying what I was doing, I couldn't make up for it with hard work. There was nothing I could do to fill that gap. And I never, after that, did anything that I didn't have confidence going in was going to be a good fit and a good opportunity, because I was working for and with the right people. And it was something I knew I could really do well and make a difference. I never made that mistake again.
That's always good to hear. It's very interesting to hear that as well. One last question I have for you. So is there a common problem area that you see through a lot of companies that students may be able to work on in college and then go into and have an impact right away in a company?
Right. It's interesting. And no matter where you are, I mean, they're in what industry and what function and so forth. I mean, you're there because some work needs to be done, and if work needs to be done, it's addressing an issue. It's addressing something, and I think we should always think about it as, what can we do differently, what can we do better? The common problem I see is people not using data and analytics and the facts, but rather looking at something and say, oh, I think we ought to do this. Well, why? And what you certainly are learning here is fact-based decision making, data-driven analysis, thinking through a problem from the beginning to the end. That's something you can bring to bear to any place you go, any job you have. And it's not as common as you think. You're around people all day long here who are thinking about it that way. You get out into the real world, you're not going to be around people all the time who are thinking about it. So use that basic approach that you really are honing here. And I think it's going to be very beneficial in your role outside.
Very nice. Well, thank you very much for the time today, Marge. It's been a fantastic time talking with you, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here. Appreciate it.